Welcome to Painting Lab's Christmas episode for 2022, in which we're going to give you a bit more of the atmosphere from this magical old house from which we've been making our content for the last 12 months. We're going to bring you up to date with what we've been working on behind the scenes,
but also give voice to some of the more active members of what is now becoming a community of people learning to draw and paint, perhaps reapproaching those skills, thanks to a little device called, of course, the Comparator Mirror.
It doesn't matter if I have to do things more than once, but if I do get a form that I like accidentally, perhaps in the early stages of a painting, there is some skill involved in keeping it, trying to keep that lovely, fresh initial underpainting showing through when it has done something useful. So many of you have said in your emails that the house we live and work in at the moment has become a real part of your experience of the channel.
Today it is absolutely full of activity. I can hear downstairs preparations being made for our annual Christmas concert, which is a wonderful night of log fires and old friends and music. But I thought I would take just a few moments today to record this video, dedicated especially to all of you who've decided to subscribe to the channel and what's more, become really involved in what we're up to in ways, of course, that I'll explain in a minute. But perhaps you remember that last time we took a tour of one of the oldest, and I certainly think one of the best art shops in the world, Cornelissen & Son, where the director, Nicholas, told us all about dragon's blood resin from the island of Socotra. Now, I'd never heard about dragon's blood resin before, and because Painting Lab is an experiment, I like to try new things and challenge myself, I thought it'd be fun to get hold of some of this stuff, grind it up and prepare it at the beginning of this video, and then we can come back at the end and see if we end up with anything useful.
So what I'm going to do to begin with is grind this rocky powder down into a fine dust about the texture of sand. Right, now I'm told that we don't need to grind this too fine. It will actually dissolve. If we use the right medium, the right liquid, it will dissolve from around about this size. So let's just see how we go. I suspect it will dissolve differently in different mediums. And then I'm going to put it into 3 different solutions: water, white spirit and linseed oil, and leave it for 24 hours. And then at the end of the video, we can come back and see what we end up with.
Back up in the library, my favourite room in this whole place. So I think it's appropriate, I think it's time really to start to give voice to some of the people, some of the correspondences that we've been having in the background of this, I keep saying it, experiment. Even though the results that we are getting with the Comparator Mirror in terms of people being able to unlock the skills of drawing and painting seem to be consistently positive, it's really important I point out that this is not some sort of promotional exercise. And so some of the comments I'm going to read out are critical. Some of them are very critical, in fact. And the first of these comes from Mark. And Mark says,
"Your prior experience is not helping. Your style is more scenery painting and you race through with very liquid paint. What Tim Jennison did was really interesting. This project with copying is daft and misleading."
So I think I want to respond to that in an even-handed way. And thank you, Mark, for your comments. Actually, it was 2 or 3 comments rolled into one, so apologies for paraphrasing. I think really the Comparator Mirror device itself has come out of research to do with Vermeer, who is, many people say, and I would agree, one of the greatest painters of all time. We're talking with Vermeer about the highest expression of the language of paint. But what Painting Lab really wants to deal with is the basic grammar and the fact that many people struggle to pick that up.
think probably as quick as 4 or 5 strokes in, I grasped what the mirror was doing. I could see the form was taking shape. It's that hint of, maybe I could do this.
So the technique I use in my challenge videos is probably a little bit abbreviated. But the reason for that is that what I'm trying to do here is unlock the basic grammar of realistic lifelike drawing and painting.
And through this methodical process of working using that thin to thick quality as I compress the filbert brush and working in a methodical way to carve back at the forms that we want to keep, to reinstate the shape of things like this iris. It's possible to build as much complexity into a painting as you choose, really.
So if we find an equivalent in literature, say, to Vermeer, I don't know, William Shakespeare, it is right and proper that William Shakespeare's plays, poems, his writing is recognised because they hold so much meaning for so many people. And the more that paintings like, say, Vermeer's Girl with a Pearl Earring seem like untouchable, magical objects, the further away they are from being understood in an intimate way. So what I want to play you now is a clip from Andrew, who's a classical musician and a composer. Often wrapped up in the ideas I was just talking about and notions of cheating and tracing and authenticity. I always want to try to push on that, interrogate that when I'm working with someone. But Andrew gave me an answer to these questions of cheating or tracing with the comparator mirror that seemed to sum up things I'd never quite managed to tie down before. So I'm going to play you this short clip, see what you think.
You're shortening the distance of comparison. So there is still a distance of comparison, it's not 0. It's funny to bring up calculus, but it is almost sort of trying to approach that liminal space. You're trying to get as close to 0 as possible, but you never hit 0. So it's not tracing, and it can't be tracing. And as for cheating, I don't know what that means.
To me, that was fascinating. I am not a mathematician. I probably say the same things about my abilities with maths as many people do about drawing and painting, in fact. I am a bit of a hypocrite in that sense. But the parallel that Andrew drew with calculus is really something to think about. Okay, so now I want to play you a message from Alex, who was kind enough not only to jump into this project after struggling with drawing and painting, of course, but kind enough to record an audio testimonial describing his experiences with the mirror and to send us some pictures, not just of finished paintings, but of his progress through blocking and blending and using his comparator mirror.
So my experiences of art in school, I enjoyed it. They were quite good at guiding people with the development of ideas. I think I wanted to be better at drawing, but no one was really there with that kind of experience. When I found your comparator mirror and built it, my main thing that I was really pleased with was able to actually paint representational art rather than just kind of like abstract with oils, which is what I thought I could only do. It didn't really feel like cheating. It's up to you how fine a grain you want to go down and detail it, really. You could keep it quite broad, the artist still retains a lot of decision making there. So it's been very useful, so thank you for your amazing videos helping guide myself and people like me through that process.
So I've said in previous videos, haven't I, that we try to put art and all its notions of prestige and genius and talent to one side and concentrate on pure technique. And what I like about Alex's approach to describing his experiences is that he sticks to the purely technical nuts and bolts of what was going on for him. Alex, well done for jumping into this, trying 2 or 3 paintings, including what will be our challenge number 4 of a brutalist building in bright sunlight. In that respect, you're miles ahead of the game, ahead of me certainly, yeah, I'm glad that this is of benefit to you.
You may recognise that this is Wendy, who painted the Lady of Shalott about 18 months ago with Painting Lab. She'll be returning to finish that painting, by the way, but because she struggled with so many of the things other people do, I thought I'd show her here as a reminder before diving into a comment from Karen. Karen says, I have watercolour paints, oil paint, oil pastels, crayons, chalk, you name it, 50 odd brushes, and they sit like a little group of monsters in the corner of my craft room, daring me to pick them up, and I simply ignore them because I know that failure is the only outcome.
First of all, I mean, you are not alone in that sense of apprehension about drawing and painting. In a way, going out and buying really beautiful artist materials is self-sabotaging if you're just beginning. Often what you come back from the art store with after a really enjoyable shopping spree are things that seem too precious to really take risks with. One tip I might give you, aside from using a comparator mirror or anything like that, is that you might want to try to use materials that cost you next to nothing. This could be a roll of decorator's lining paper from a DIY store. It probably cost you £5, maybe $7 or $8. Perhaps if you have access to a wood-burning stove, you could take out a few embers if you're careful, and this means you'll have an infinite supply of charcoal. With your lining paper, which is not that far away from really nice heavyweight cartridge paper, impervious to moisture, so you can paint straight onto it, and perhaps a small selection of student-quality acrylics or oil paints, you've really got everything you need to start your first couple of years of painting. You don't need anything more advanced than that, really.
So, moving on to another query. Shannon says, love the tutorial, challenge number 1. I've watched it about 4 times now, but for some reason, I'm really struggling with the first stage. I've repainted it 5 times, just can't get it right. I will admit, I'm used to having a more detailed drawing or underpainting. Well, Shannon, you can have as much of an underdrawing as you like. You don't have to do exactly what I do in my tutorials if it doesn't suit you. She also says, I'm struggling to get my paints to lay down without mixing with the paint below.
So these struggles to layer paint up, to get paint to behave in the way you want it to, so that you're not constantly overwhelmed by the complexity, is something many people struggle with. It also handily lets me jump on to another subscriber's efforts with the Comparator Mirror, Henk. So Henk got on board with us about 3 or 4 months ago, and within a month he'd sent us back his first attempt at a portrait or a double portrait. So my role in this project is not to sit here passing judgment on paintings that you make as you begin to unlock the language of painting in your own particular way, but Henk's painting gives me a perfect opportunity to explore a couple of the issues I've touched on in my challenge videos in a bit more detail. By the way, I've got Henk's permission to do this, and Henk's kindly also let us use his source image. So what I'm going to do is quickly assemble a very roughly blocked in tonal version of Henk's portrait with an absolutely knackered old varnishing brush. And then I want to show you in some detail how blending can be used, not just to achieve a photographic likeness, but to refine very rough and often quite inaccurate blocking in. Hopefully, Shannon, this will also give you some sort of a clue as to how you might begin to get more control in your painting process.
So firstly, it's counterintuitive, but we don't get control by doing things perfectly the first time. Look how rough my blocking in has been with the roughest old brush I could get my hands on, and 3 basic colour mixes, dark, light and a mid-tone. Now all I'm going to do is take a soft and clean brush. You know that I like to use a filbert-shaped brush because I think it gives me the greatest versatility. And all I'm going to do is blend where light meets dark, just softening up those contour lines. When the contour of the shape is as I want it to be, I blend in the middle. When I want to push light into dark, I move from the light, blending into the dark, and I switch that round when I want to push in dark. And you can use a comparator mirror to be more assured about where those adjustments need to take place. The blending stage after a rough blocking is about refining your image, giving you a sense of control, of mastery over those messy mistakes that were in the first layers, which I think, Shannon, may have thrown you off the scent of an otherwise perfectly decent painting. Your first stages of blocking are always going to be messy, and paintings are always wrong before they are right. This stage gets really addictive really fast once you get the hang of it. Just look at the difference that 10 minutes of nudging at the edges of things have made as far as refining my image toward my source photograph, which may not necessarily be what you want, but there you are.
Right. I think that's enough to illustrate to you the effect that blending can make after a very rough initial blocking in the painting process. From here, I could continue to blend to an almost photographic blur, or I could go into another layer of detail down by stepping down my brush size from that great big thick varnishing brush to something a bit more refined. So before I wrap this video up, let's now pop back and see how my experiments with the dragon's blood resin have turned out.
Right, okay, so two of these have really not worked at all. The white spirit and the water have done nothing to dissolve the dragon's blood, but the linseed has worked beautifully. So colour-wise, this is not at all as I expected it to be. More rust than blood, I would say. In fact, pretty similar to the colour of the sweatshirt I'm wearing, which in fact is perfect for a little job I've got going on that side of the studio. A Christmas portrait of my beloved sister painted in 15th century style with a dragon's blood underpainting to make those skin tones glow.
So I really hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen today, and that the experiences of other users might have provoked you, if you haven't already, to subscribe and to, well, take up what's on offer here. A new reason to think again about your own abilities to learn the language of drawing and painting, which is so much more fundamental, I think, than everything we've come to understand over the last 300 or 400 years as art. In a way, this lovely old house, which it's been my pleasure to live and work in, represents what's happened over that 300 or 400 year period, where mastery of the skills of drawing and painting has elevated individual creators to near godlike status. But if you can, as you're drawing and painting, try not to let that history of art, ideas of who Vermeer may have been, how great Leonardo da Vinci was, distract you from the basic grammar that you're trying to learn. And when you do become comfortable with these things, you'll be able to engage with artists as great as Vermeer, Da Vinci, Caravaggio, all the more intimately. Don't forget, if you'd like to get your hands on one of our DIY comparator mirrors and build your own kit, just like the other subscribers you've heard in this video today, all you need to do is email us at this address and we'll post one out to you for no more than postage and packing. Often I'm asked whether we are still doing this. We have no intention of stopping, believe you me. This experiment has real momentum behind it now, and the more of you who get on board, the more powerful this message becomes. Until next time, good luck with all of that. Have a lovely Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you in that new year with challenge video number 3.
This time all about inventive, playful brushwork depicting natural forms seen close up. And this unseen little constable is going to be our guide, showing us just how inventive and playful this kind of painting can really be.
Thanks for watching.